This is my fourth and last video discussing the civil fraud verdict against Trump, his two sons, and various legal entities controlled by Trump. I'm only going to discuss in this video the 40 Wall Street and Seven Springs properties, along with some weaknesses in the state's case. I have not delved deeply into that subject, but will only be summarizing parts of the court's opinion that may trouble the appellate court. Findings of fact and judging the credibility of witnesses are not generally reviewable on appeal except in limited circumstances that do not appear applicable to Trump's appeal. See New York CPLR 5501. The 40th Wall Street property was given an appraised value of $220 million as of 11/1/2012, but was given in the next year's financial statements a valuation of $527 million. Trump claimed at one time that the property had operating income of $64 million when it actually had a deficit. Trump told Forbes that the property had 72 stories when it actually only had 63. A mortgage loan on this property had an outstanding balance of $122.6 million as of around November last year, based on an article that I read that discussed that loan being transferred to a special servicer called Rialto Capital, that's RIALTO, who manages commercial-backed mortgage securities that were either in default, which the Trump loan is not as far as I can tell, or were at potential danger of being in default. See the article published on November 13, 2023 at mpamag.com titled Former President Trump's Loan on 40 Wall Street Gets Transferred to Special Servicer. That article claims that the existing coupon on the mortgage is 3.67% and the loan will mature in July 2025. Assuming Trump is able to finance, the interest rate will likely be materially higher than 3.67%, in my opinion. The building had 77% occupancy as of June 30, 2023, down from 98% when the loan on the property was made. We will see in July 2025 whether Trump has any equity in this building, let alone $527 million. I would also recommend reading the ProPublica story published on October 16, 2016, titled, quote, Never Before Seen Trump Tax Documents Show Major Inconsistencies, end of quote. That noted that different income, expense, or occupancy numbers were used in a financing package for the property, while some lower numbers were used in filings with the city tax authorities that produced a lower tax bill. Nancy Wallace, a professor of finance and real estate at the University of California, Berkeley, was quoted in the article saying, quote, this kind of stuff is not okay, end quote, and they are, quote, versions of fraud, end quote. Another property that the court found to be fraudulently valued is called Seven Springs. Eric Trump wanted the property appraised at $161 million in a 2012 financial statement. The court found that this, quote, valuation assumed a host of future events that had not, and in hindsight has shown would not occur, including that the Trump organization had received legal permission to develop the lots, that the mansions were already built and available for sale, and that there would be no construction or development costs associated with building the mansions. An appraiser valued the property in 2014 at $14 million, A few days later, Eric Trump told a Trump employee to keep the $161 million valuation. See page 65 of the judge's opinion. One of Trump's defenses to the civil fraud verdict may work on the appellate court level. Briefly summarize, the argument is that the New York anti-fraud law relied on by the state attorney general is typically used to protect unsophisticated customers, whereas the fraudulent financial statements were sent to allegedly sophisticated financial institutions that, in theory at least, were capable of doing their own due diligence. There was some testimony from a banker that he slashed Trump's estimated net worth from $4.6 billion that Trump had reported to Deutsche Bank to $2.6 billion. That kind of testimony will help Trump on appeal, in my opinion. A problem is that Trump had a lot of properties, and information impacting the valuation was not disclosed and sometimes hidden from appraisers, according to the court's opinion. The restrictions in two deeds that required Mar-a-Lago to be used only as a social club and preventing the subdividing of the property and prohibiting remedial work on the property that would make it desirable as a single family home is just one example. Those documents were not given to the appraiser. Another example is claiming that the triplex had 30,000 square feet when it only had 10,996, or claiming that there was a permission had been granted for 2,500 residents at the Aberdeen property when only 500 had been authorized. Or another example would be that apartments which were rent stabilized were not rent stabilized at all, which significantly impacted the valuations materially. All of those materially inflated the valuations. I may have misinterpreted the judge's reasoning on classifying the profits on two properties as ill-gotten gains. The judge was not clear, in my opinion, on his reasoning here. The most important of those two buildings was the old post office building, a major contributor to the fraud verdict. The damage verdict against the two sons entirely consisted of their share of the profit, and $126,828,600 of the verdict against Trump and controlled entity was their share. So over $126 million. The judge is apparently not saying that the deal would not have happened with honest financial statements, but that non-fraudulent statements were required to secure the loan and that the bank relied on the accuracy of those statements in making the loan. That may not be enough on appeal to justify this kind of award. Another argument is that the contract required $50 million in unencumbered liquidity. See page 70 of the judge's decision. And that there was not that much liquidity if you deducted $16.5 million improperly treated as cash on the financial statements that were attributable to the Vornado partnership that Trump did not control. And that interest was not cash, clearly was not cash, even though it was classified as cash. And the savings and interest resulting from the fraudulent financial statements, which would together have created a negative cash position. I did not find this part of the ruling very convincing either. Failure to maintain the required cash level would be a breach of a loan covenant, but even if known, would probably have been worked out in some way. The damage award depends on classifying a profit arising from the sale of the old post office building as renovated as ill-gotten gain, since the loan acquired to finance the property was secured by financing statements that were fraudulent.